Percolate on a particular mix of odd and inspiring news headlines in Wendy's Coffee House. Newsmakers with a penchant for the unknown, unexplained, and unusual share their experiences with UFOs, ghost encounters, near-death experiences, and more for your own unique blend of Wendy's Coffee House Curious. And now, here's Wendy.
I can't believe fall's already here. It happened really fast. Summer, over already. But that's not so bad. Just so many things happening this summer that it was kind of hard to keep up with everything. And I need to check in with the astrologer we had on talking about what was, the calm after the storm of Mercury and Mars retrograde. But then this week we had a full moon, and I really have been incredibly enlightened as to what that means with traffic accidents. Because when it was full, all of a sudden, come into work and 6 accidents in the major metropolitan area. All of the major thoroughfares are shut down. And I'm thinking, okay, this might be a full moon correlation. So I started looking up to see. And the deal is, I had seen a study about motorcycle accidents, and what they're saying is, well, it's difficulty seeing. They're all looking at the moon. I don't buy they're all looking at the moon. Okay, that kind of is a suggestion of irresponsibility and distraction when these guys, men and women, are used to driving, riding. However, what came up with the accidents of this other, like traffic accidents, do have an increase, and it has to do with the change in something about the body, how it responds to some kind of health issue. Okay, so like it's a biphasic change of atmospheric precipitations. Barometric pressure might be a way of doing that. But there is a higher incidence. Now, I also saw a study on, and that was a total no, on issues with violence, and more people reporting violent episodes, shootings, that kind of stuff. Said no, it has nothing to do with it. And hospitals have for a long time said they noticed something during the full moon. And of course, everybody says no, that's not it, or at least the research has said no. But finally, this correlation and watching it as it happened with traffic reporting, I'm like, okay, there's more to this. We need to ask better questions and find out a little. I think, a better way to measure some of these things. So that was fascinating. And again, it's energy. And we are a lot more susceptible to things like barometric pressure than we account for. Animals sense it. I wanted to get somebody who is talking to me about crystals and crystal energy. And I've talked with her before about animals, and a fun book that she did with a co-writer on how the supposedly enlightened person's guide to raising a dog. Kac Young is with me. Hi there. Are you awake?
Good morning.
Did I say your name right?
I don't know. How did you say
I said
it?
Kac Young. See, and it's Kac because it's an unusual name.
Yes, you're correct, 100%.
Okay, I remembered it from last time, so that was cheating.
You're funny.
Okay.
Funny.
Okay. I don't know, if anybody has heard the other interview we did, but I do highly recommend it because Lisa Tenzin-Dolma, you guys did a fabulous job with your book on dogs, and your dogs are delightful. And so that on your website, it's Kac Young. If you're listening, kacyoung.com, you can check out the books. What 16 books now?
16 books now. Yes, ma'am.
That's impressive. It's also busy.
Thank you.
It's also busy.
Very.
Yeah. The supposedly enlightened guides, or person's guide to raising a dog, and it's delightful. It's a fabulous dog, and 2 experts, basically. You were in good hands with her, and I love the way you tell the story. So I just wanted to get that in there before we get into the art of healing with crystals.
Thank you.
Now, back to the present. When we talk about energy and subtle energy and all that stuff, there are still people on the fence with whether or not crystal energy is relevant and if it exists. And I am biased. I know it does. I work with it. I feel it. I sense it. I see those kinds of things, the subtle energies and auras. That's to me old hat. But for this book, you walk people through actually doing sessions. And I wanted to talk about your experience with, well, okay, first the background. This is what's so amazing. You have a background totally in a different area, but it does deal with Hollywood and energy, star energy. Real quickly, because Jacqueline Zeman is one of the people who does endorsements for your books.
Yes, well, I really didn't transition, Wendy. What it was is that when I was working in television, I noticed that people had various different problems coping with the stress. And so we have a beautiful thing in television called hiatus. And when we're not working really hard, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we get these periods of time off. And I would use those times to go and find out something about the metaphysical world. I worked with healers around the world in various different modalities because I realized that we have a certain amount of energy that we're given when we're born, and then there is an infinite amount of energy surrounding us. And how would we utilize that to enhance our lives and maybe prolong it? So the day that a stage manager dropped dead in front of me at CBS, I said, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that person having worked that hard. I want a more rounded life. So I began to integrate my learning with my show business time off, and it enriched not only my ability to make television and to make worthwhile television, but also my interaction with people. I saw them not just as commodities and a means to an end, but an actual entity, living, breathing entity with a soul and a heart. And so I was able to use that every day to work with people. And I think that my experiences and these little gifts of the hiatus, I was able to go around the world and work with amazing people, and that's how I integrated the two of them. So when I stopped working at the grist of the mill, when I stopped working those incredible hours, I was able to concentrate full time on what I had learned in bits and pieces and really go ahead and bring myself into a mature state of being a metaphysician.
I want to get into the trip that you took with Jackie Zeman over to the pyramid. And this was an incredible opportunity because I think, if I remember right, it was 20 years that people had been prohibited from visiting, or the first time that the public was able to go into that particular chamber. So I want to do that, but we have to take a break. So I really would like to get into that before we get any further into the book, because it's a fascinating story. And just real quickly, we're talking with Kac Young, and you can get on the website, check her out, kacyoung.com. The book, The Art of Healing with Crystals, is what I'm referring to, but there are several. And cats, dogs, the animals are also a part of this, and a very significant part if you read any of her books. The 1 Minute Cat Manager, or the other one, The Supposedly Enlightened Person's Guide to Raising a Dog. They're both fun, and they both have very, very real experiences with pets who like to delight and mystify us in so many different ways. So we're going to come back and do just kind of a recap of what happened when you went to Egypt with your crystals and activated them in this beautiful and wonderfully sacred area. Are you up for that, Kat?
Absolutely. I'm all yours, Wendy.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, you're going to get an up-close and personal view of what it's like to go into a sacred space with crystals and sense that crystal energy and how that works. Up next, Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House, KCMO Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Whenever you're listening, I love the fact that this can be live and almost live and present. It's timeless. And my guest is going to take us to a time when she was really connected and in a unique way in the pyramids with crystals. And The Art of Healing with Crystals by Kac Young, that's available. That's the book. You can check it out. A lot of fantastic information on how to basically get in sync with your crystal, how to do a session, that kind of stuff. But when you went, this is several years back, when you went to Egypt, what was it like? And then we'll get back into, after that, telling people how the science behind connecting with crystals, okay? Would that work?
Whatever you want to do, perfectly fine with me.
Let's go to Egypt.
Well, yes, I can tell you about the trip to Egypt. I have a friend in Cincinnati who is a psychic, and she has worked with police. She's found missing persons. She's solved crimes. She's done amazing things. Her name is Patricia Michelle, and she was putting together a trip to Egypt. Now, at the time, I was producing General Hospital, the television show, and one of my friends, was Jackie Zeman, who plays Bobby Spencer on the show. So I mentioned to Jackie, oh my gosh, my friend Patricia Michelle is taking a group to Egypt, and they're doing a metaphysical tour of Egypt. And she said, oh, can we go? So the two of us got together with the scheduling department, and we got some time off, and we went on this 10-day trip. So we went to Egypt together, and we got up very early in the morning to go to a lot of these places because it's very hot in Egypt, and you have to get up at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning to go into some of these monuments in the Valley of the Kings and certainly the pyramid at Giza. So I had brought a lot of my crystals with me. I worked with them a lot. I had learned from Frank Alper, and I was studying the work of crystals, and I thought, hey, what a great idea to take my crystals to a major PowerPoint in the world. So I took my crystals, and Jackie knew all about them, and she would work with me and my crystals as well. She is an extremely metaphysical person herself. So we got up this one particular morning at 3 o'clock, and you crawl through very small, narrow passageways to get up into the king's chamber in the pyramid of Giza. And so I had brought my crystals with me, and I decided that I was going to leave behind at least one cluster of crystals that had been given to me by someone for this purpose should I ever go to Egypt. So in the metaphysical world, there's a lot of synchronicity, and a lot of people come out of the woodwork, and you say, oh, my God, how did this happen? But it's all one movement. It's all one idea. So I had this crystal with me, and I went into the pyramid, and we weren't able to do what we wanted to do that morning because there were other people on the tour. So the guide had said, well, we'll come back in the evening when they close everything down, and you guys will have time. So my group and I went back to the pyramid, and we were able to consecrate these crystals that I had brought in the king's chamber. We were able to lie in the sarcophagus that is there, and we were able to then leave a crystal cluster down a grate in the pyramid where no one would touch it. And I wanted to be able to leave something there that I could connect with for the rest of my life. So the next day we went to see the Sphinx, and we were able to be up close and touch it. I mean, this was in the late 80s, so the security wasn't that enormous, and we had special metaphysical guides that enabled us to get really close. So I dug up a little place next to the left paw of the Sphinx, and I left another crystal cluster there. And I left it there, and I thought, this is for world healing. This is to heal the land. This is for all of us to connect to and have the power of the ancients regenerated any day. And then I kept the third crystal cluster. I kept that for myself. So I am able to connect with that power place, and the crystals that I brought back that were consecrated in the king's chamber, those crystals charge up other crystals of mine, and their healing ability is pretty massive.
How does that work?
The healing ability?
Yeah.
Well, there is an electromagnetic energy, a scientific electromagnetic energy carried by every stone, including crystals, and it vibrates with a similar frequency to our frequency as human beings. So the crystal has a frequency and a vibration. We have a frequency and a vibration. And when those two vibrations vibrate compatibly, we create a third field. And this is the physical field that shifts the action in the brain. When those two vibrational patterns make a third one, that's the one that the brain pays attention to. Because, why? Because crystals are silica. They're SiO2. And in our brain, we have massive amounts of silica. Those two things together, when they vibrate, they talk to each other. And this is how healing happens. This is how balance and adjustment occurs, by using the fields in the crystals within our own body. It goes like, it's like a frog leapfrogging from one lily pad to another. We get that direct result of the energies that are compatible and vibrating together. That's the magic, and that's the scientific truth.
Okay. I've read information about this through radionics. Is that something you are familiar with, or you ever work with radionics?
Well, I have not as a specific science, but I certainly do in the fields that I work with. I work with energy and vibrational healing. So, I'm very, very familiar with the auric fields that they have proven at UCLA and in laboratories all over the world when they use certain meters that can read these frequencies. So in that sense, yes, and with the Taino laboratories in Oregon, who figured out what the vibration of healthy foods were versus not healthy foods or canned foods, and that they can tell the degree of living or life within something by way of measurement.
Yes, yes. Duncan Laurie, I just did an interview with him a while back, and I want to do another one again. A lot of it gets into that energy and the measuring, which is significant because that gives you some data to work with to see, okay, I'm not just imagining, I can see the fluctuations and what difference it makes. But I wanted to get into that because using crystals, and when you're connected like that, some people are still a bit hesitant because at this point we don't have significant data saying this is legit and this is how it works. In your experience, when you work with crystals, and you have some stories in the book, can you give an example of what it involves and how you work with a client with crystal energy? And I've got about 3 minutes here, so if we don't finish, we'll go into the next break, okay?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that what I do is I stimulate the field, the crystal field around, the vibrational field of the crystals, and I line them all up and I choose the ones I'm going to work with. And then within that field, the person themselves has to be open to take in and to, if you will, pair up with that energy. And you have to be willing. If you come to crystal energy with a closed mind, it's not going to work for you. You have to have that open channel to allow the crystal energy in. And because in this world we need everything proven in front of us, we miss so much. The ancients used crystals and crystal energies for thousands of years before, and we are the dumbest society on the planet for not taking advantage of what's available to us in the natural world by using its vibration to increase, help, and improve our own.
I think part of that comes from the ideology that if it isn't material, then it doesn't exist, that thought.
Well, of course it does. Of course, and we were fine until we had people like Descartes and Kant and those people who separated mind, body, and soul, and who said, over here is one set of files. That's your feelings, and those don't matter. And over here is rational thought, and that's what matters because we can prove it. And guess what? We lost all of our ability to heal ourselves and to heal our planet from a different point of view. And if we come back to that, we will find that many of our problems will dissolve.
What I like about it is the science, the quantum science, is really getting into a lot more of this and bringing things that we haven't been able to factor into some sort of basis where we can see at this tiny, tiny infinitesimal level something is happening, the vibrations, the shifts, the responses. And that's, I think, is what the crystal energy is about, too, that we just are going to continue seeing these kinds of abilities open, expand, where people are using it on more practical levels. And there are some people, when I've done research for this, saying that I was totally a skeptic until I experienced it. And it was that need to try something new, to try something totally out of left field because nothing else worked. And then this came into the equation, and all of a sudden, mind blown. I want to get into a story. My own crystal stuff here. Went to Arkansas to a place where it's the Board Camp Crystal Mine. Talk about their crystals and some of the energy along with that. With my guest, and Kac Young, The Art of Healing with Crystals is the book. Coming up a little bit more crystal background here on KCMO Talk Radio. Wendy's Coffee House. Back in a few. KCMO Talk Radio. It's Wendy's Coffee House. Thanks for tuning in. My guest, Kac Young, is the author of The Art of Healing with Crystals and 15 other books. Go on our website. You can check them all out. Check them all out there. And there's also the science in the book. You know, if you're still curious about all of this, we don't have time to get into everything, but talking about the sonar, talking about different kinds of sound frequencies transmitted through water, and basically some of this stuff, you know, it really is a little more technological than we are able to talk about, at least me, coherently. But the science of all these things that have to do with crystals is there, and IBM Laboratories. This is something that changed our technology, radio included, because of the things we've learned. But working with them in terms of energy and healing and trying to do that kind of thing is still considered a foreign area. And I wanted to get into. I took a trip to Board Camp Crystal Mine because what I heard and saw little snippets of on the internet was that they had levitating rocks. And I thought, well, that is really cool. And it happens to be in an area where they've got the volcano activity. Only when I got down there and had kind of a time shift moment where I remembered, and my husband remembered, this certain piece of furniture in the room that they say it wasn't in the room, and it was, but it wasn't. I thought, okay, there's more going on here than I can explain. And then we find out it's a Sasquatch area. And so on top of that, there are crystals in that area that are in designated spots, uniform and intentional. And the people aren't doing this. Something else there is doing it. What they also experienced was one night they saw this like a UFO activity, 3 pillars of light, and Cheryl and Orville Murphy are the people. They wrote a book about it called Beams, took pictures. This blew them away because this is not anything that they had ever intended to get involved with. Okay, so all this stuff, the paranormal activity, levitating rocks, and then things being moved, the Sasquatch, the thing that they've now discovered, that there's more activity there that is considered to be Bigfoot, Sasquatch related. And I saw the designs, the trees that they bent, the branches, the whole 9 yards. This stuff happens one night right before we got there. There was a tree, and this is a log maybe 3 foot in diameter, 2.5, 3 foot in diameter, and 12 to 16 feet long, and it's about 25 foot up in the tree overnight. Wow. So what has also been implied is that places that have a heavy deposit of crystals do have different kinds of anomalies, and paranormal activity, regardless of Sasquatch or UFO, is a part of that because of the dynamics of the energy involved with heavy deposits of crystals. This is fascinating. I haven't gone into full-blown study with it yet, but it's an area I'm very interested in, and I wanted to ask you about that because that kind of energy is amplified, and when you start using crystals, you begin to get more familiar with each of their properties. Can you address that? Not that I'm throwing you off the deep end, but but why not?
No. I have 2 answers for you. The first answer is the science. One is that crystal quartz is made of silicone and oxygen, and its chemical formula is SiO2. Okay, this chemical structure of this item is regarded as the perfect order in nature. Now, the complicated science is that it has to do with the lattice structure inside the crystal itself. But it's the way the crystal vibrates. It's the way the crystal transmits and transmutes energy. And you can send heat through a crystal. You can send light. You can send electricity through a crystal. And it doesn't distort it in any way. That is exactly why it is used in computers, in lasers. We wouldn't have laser surgery if it weren't for crystals, because it takes that beam and it hones it down and it directs it. The crystal does not distort. therefore, whatever is geomagnetic comes up through that crystal and into our world. Now, when I was at Stonehenge, and when I experimented around at certain lay points, the blue stone that they brought in from Wales has a certain magnetic resonancy, and it is in touch with or in connection with other major monuments around the world. Now, if you know your history, you know that these people didn't have any communication with each other, and yet they were building similar structures. So when they hauled these 4-ton rocks of bluestone from Wales, that's 200 miles into Somerset, into the middle of Britain, they brought it there for its magnetic and its let's use the word magical qualities, because that's what they considered that they were. They were connective. They had rituals, they had ceremonies, they had initiations, and as you suggested, there also was alien contact back then through all these structures that are around the world. And I don't care what society you look at. You can look at the Mayans, you can look at the Greeks, you can look at Egyptians. All these people had this same knowledge at the same time. So when I stood in Stonehenge, because I've gone around the world to experience this energy, I want to know this crystal energy inside and out like I know my best friend. Mm-hmm. So I stood there and I played with pendulums and I used crystals and I got in touch with, and I felt what the ancients felt. And all of a sudden, it all made sense because my body felt lighter. My being was lighter. My soul was lighter. I left there with no aches and pains because I stood in this energy which rose me. It elevated me to a higher vibration, and that did a whole lot of cleansing out of any cobwebs that I had. So when I walked away from Stonehenge, I felt a different person. And you can go there and not take advantage of this energy and just stand there and it'll still do some work. But when you open your mind, when you become an open vessel, that energy just says, oh, good, thank you. I have a new vessel. Let me just scrub-a-dub-dub, and I'll take care of all those old vibrations, and I will rejuvenate you. Let me bring you closer into the highest vibration, my pleasure. And all you do is stand there and go, I am so grateful. I can't even speak.
Yeah, that's a buzz. That's a buzz.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you're trying to get a crystal, and there is a difference. There are manufactured crystals, and they don't seem to have the same frequency, chords, vibration. And there are the authentic crystals, and with the Board Camp Crystal Mine, my experience there was they don't want to do anything that will damage that energy. So they avoid going in there with heavy machinery and, really doing some massive digging. They just try and get what they can from the surface. And at one point, I was getting into that story with the 3 beams, they had a little explosion on the top of the hill, and that pushed out a bunch of crystals. It also sent the magnetics just off the charts. And that was one of the places that we toured. You can actually go there. They're open for tours, and you can dig crystals or pick crystals off the surface. They're everywhere. But these are the quartz crystal. And I have a wonderful piece that was given to me from that place, and also one that I was guided to pick up after I had toured something that they call the Sasquatch Nursery. And it showed me a rock on the ground, which is really interesting because it's a crystal, and it's the shape of the bottom of it is like a foot. It's like a right foot. And then as I'm digging for crystals and looking later on, I find another one that's absolutely the left foot. So I have the crystals here that are in the shape of feet. And I just thought, well, isn't that not an accident? Amazing. And crystals are part of it.
Well, yes, and it is when you pick your crystal, you want to make sure that it's not man-made. Now, man-made crystals are great because, like I said, the structure of the crystal takes heat, it takes energy, it takes light, and it channels it. It puts it through it, so it's fine. But if you want the stuff that's real healing, you need crystals that have come from the earth. I call it suspended breath, Wendy, because way back when it was molten, somebody took a breath. And if you look inside a crystal, it's a breath. That's what's in there, and that's what's holding it together is this breath. And when you use that crystal, you're bringing in ancient healing and current healing and all of the vibrations of the earth that makes it all work. There is a synchronicity to our planet, to our cosmos, and to our earth, and you're tapping into that order as well, and that's an order that helps us. When we bring that inside of us, we then become ordered and balanced, and that's what the Chinese used crystals for, is they brought it in there to line up with their 5 elements and create the 12 meridians of harmony within the body. So every society has used crystals for this way, but it's the natural crystals you want, and I too pick my crystals that have been hand dug and not machine dug, because that's, again, another, I don't know, sort of a rudeness, if you will, digging into the earth, and you want someone with love in their heart to bring your crystal forward, because that's all they have for you. They just have love to give you. So let's not interrupt that particular frequency. And I love places where you can go and dig your own. I love that, because when you tune into them, they'll pull right back into you. It's like, okay, what am I seeking? And it's also seeking a partner. Crystals do not have a mind of their own. We become the mind, and we direct them to do their purpose.
Okay.
They're full of energy.
Yeah, let's take a break here, because as you're saying direct, that goes into the next segment. Let's just take that into the next break and talk about how you program a crystal and the purpose, the healing, the reason, the thought behind that. Okay, so hang on just a second. If you're listening, again, my guest is the author of The Art of Healing with Crystals, Kac Young, KCMO Talk Radio. KCMO Talk Radio, Wendy's Coffee House. My guest she wears many hats, has worn many hats. Kac Young, The Art of Healing with Crystals. And we mentioned earlier, just kind of did a little name drop with Jackie Zeman, the General Hospital, but she was also the entertainment credits, the People's Choice Awards, the Golden Globe Awards, Politically Incorrect, the people that you might recognize, and just in terms of behind the scenes working and helping as she was in her career to expand her knowledge of all of this metaphysical stuff, and that includes hypnotherapy and being a hypnotherapist. We don't have time to get into all of this, but when you're doing this and you're bringing that element into the equation, you stumbled on something, and I think the crystal energy that gave you an opportunity to really go behind the scenes. Some people don't have access to the areas you went to, like the Egyptian tomb. What did you do to learn how to program the crystals? Is that something that you were taught, or was it intuitive?
Well, I was taught. I went to school under Frank Alper, and he had been a scientist at IBM, and he had designed putting all these crystals into these machines that we use. And then he decided that the metaphysical aspect, the healing aspect of the crystals was more important to him. So he broke away from IBM, and he began teaching all around the world. He was a huge expert in Switzerland, where he retired many years ago. Anyway, so I was very blessed to come into Frank's aura, and I was taught by him the honor of crystals and the power of them from the scientific point of view. So as I did my own explorations and met with people and talked to people and began teaching about them myself, I learned that deep inside me and everybody is like an automatic respect for the land, for the earth, and somehow it gets set aside. But that is in our DNA. We come from a place of wanting to love our earth and wanting to know its secrets because our ancestors did. So when we open that up, it comes naturally. And when I cleanse a crystal, I will choose a crystal based on how it feels in both my left and right hands. I do ask it to share with me its vibration. And through that, I make a decision whether or not it's coming into my world or not. And then I will cleanse it. I will bring it home in case it's been someplace else that it hasn't wanted to be, or I just purify it for my intentions. And I use a sea bath, or I just use a plain water, and I will put it in the sun. I will put it in the moonlight. I will give it a sound bath. I will smudge it. Whatever it is that, the crystal and I talk to each other, and whatever it's comfortable with, I will do. And yeah, that's the answer. I do talk to my crystals. Absolutely. I have conversations with them because they have the quanta intelligence of being, and they were here a long time before me. So they've picked up a lot of tips, and I want them to share their world with me. So after I cleanse them, I then speak to them. I interview them, if you will. I ask them where they are comfortable being in my house. Do they want to be in a sunny location? Do they want to be in some place hidden? What do they want to do? And then I will bless it, and then I will give it a purpose. I will tell it that I sense that it's a healing crystal, or I sense it's a crystal for cleansing, or I sense that it has another purpose. Sometimes I have crystals when I write. I have them on my desk because their job is to unblock my mind and to bring in everything that I need to know about a particular subject. So I have those crystals. And then I have crystals that I use in ritual, and crystals that I use when I attend to the solstice or to the equinox. I have purposed all of my crystals to do different things. And then I set them up, and I allow them to be out, then I cleanse them, then I put them away. Everything is a rest time. So sometimes they go back into the cabinet, and they're allowed to rest. And when my animals are sick, I bring the crystals out. I can't leave my basket of crystals around because my cats will sleep on it. And then they'll be like buzzed for days. I've healed many a cat malady by having them sit on my basket of crystals with a towel over the top. And they love it. They're just into that vibe, and it soothes them. And then it gives them extra energy, and then they race around the house. But it's healing for them. It's very healing. And I will always seal my sessions with my crystals with a blessing, with some kind of proclamation of gratitude towards them, because they have been in service to me. And so I like to also be in some kind of service to them. I am their keeper. I've even got them in my will as to who will take my crystals after I leave my mortal existence here. I want them to go on to someone who's going to love them as deeply as I do.
It really does make a difference working with something that is coherent or in some way, shape, or form that vibrates with you. And the belief is huge. And a lot of people who practice these kinds of therapies and just knowing that if you have that ability to suspend disbelief and say, what if? People are going to want to contact you. So how's the best way to get in touch? And what do you recommend in terms of, starting with a crystal? Is it just, and we've got 2 minutes, so there you go.
Okay, well, easy. My book, if you are a doubter and if you think this is all hooey, read my book. If you like this and you want to study more, read my book. I wrote it for all people. I'm open to everybody's attitude about this. You can find it on Amazon, and you can also reach me at Kac, K-A-C, Young, YOUNG.com. And I have tabs across my website, and you can pick the subject that you're interested in and learn further, or contact me. And also, I want to say that when I was in the Thomas Fire, not quite a year ago, but it'll be a year this December, and every house around me burned to the ground. We had 7 minutes to leave, and I left, and I had to leave my crystals behind because I had to take my 7 animals in 7 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we walked out of here in nightgowns with our cell phone and a purse and a robe, and that's it. And I didn't know for 2 days if my house had burned to the ground. I watched my neighbors' houses burn to the ground on television from the hotel room, and I figured it would be burned. When I was able to get back up here, and that's a whole side miracle, but when I was able to get back up here, everything was still smoldering, but only 30% of our house had burned, and it was the backside. And the crystal room, the room with all the crystals in it, was still there and shining through the smoke. They survived. I think they protected this house. I think they kept us standing. And every morning I am grateful to them because I watch everybody else rebuilding from scratch. And all we had to do was some cosmetic work.
That is absolutely fantastic. Okay, yeah, well, that's a whole nother story for a different show. Kac Young, my guest. If you want to find out more, check her out at kacyoung.com. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. Incredible stuff. And crystals, believe. And you might see something you don't expect. Maybe I should say you will see something you don't expect. Stay curious. Till next time. See ya.